This video is #not sponsored, yet made possible by Bitmoji, Canva, InShot, Lexis Audio Editor, and PixArt. I am a mobile content creator and I'm partially blind, so if I can do this, maybe you can do it too. Hello there humans, I am Dal Cecile Runo, the partially blind alien from a distant galaxy who is an own voices author. And this video is very special because it's a collaboration with fellow author-tubers and writers with disabilities. There's a playlist, so I'm gonna link it in the description and in the pinned comment. Check it out after this video. Here I'm gonna be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of blind and low vision representation in fiction, which means books, TV shows, and some films. And because I want to end up in a happier or at least better note, I'm gonna start with the bad or the ugly, and this is gonna get me in so much trouble, but yeah, you guys know that it took me a while to read and I did not grow up with these series. But yeah, I have two examples of very loved and praised series by popular authors that, oh my goodness, I felt so unwelcome. The first one is Harry Potter. I should call this Harry Potter and the Broken Glasses or something. Whenever this author had the opportunity to show how difficult it is for Harry because his glasses are not working or whatever, she did. And not only that, I mean, she honed on the blind monster trope that has to die at the end of the series somewhere, like it's nobody's business. We needed Voldemort in book 4 for things to, you know, divert from that trope. And the whole Harry has issues with his glasses thing. You want an example? Before you call me out like, oh, you're just being bitter because it's a very popular series and you're nobody or something like that, yeah, let me give you a proof and let the work speak for itself. We have a blind acromantula in book 1. We have a basilisk in book 2. Oh god, like, oh yeah, the basilisk wasn't blind, no, but it was left blind before it died, you know, right at the end. And then in book 3, I was like, honey, what is the blind monster of this story now? Like, and why did I even ask? And now we have the mentors, and the mentors are blind and deaf. Oh god, Rowling, please. You want proof? There you have it.
Oculus Reparo. Oculus Reparo.
How on earth was he going to see the snitch in this? The Hufflepuffs were approaching from the opposite side of the field wearing canary yellow robes. The captains walked up to each other and shook hands. Diggory smiled at Wood, but Wood now looked as though he had lockjaw and merely nodded. Harry saw Madame Hooch's mouth form the words, "Mount your brooms." He pulled his right foot out of the mud with a squelch and swung it over his Nimbus 2000. Madame Hooch put her whistle to her lips and gave it a blast that sounded shrill and distant. They were off. Harry rose fast, but his Nimbus was swerving slightly with the wind. He held it as steady as he could and turned, squinting into the rain. Within 5 minutes, Harry was soaked to his skin and frozen, hardly able to see his teammates, let alone the tiny snitch. He flew backward and forward across the field, past blurred red and yellow shapes, with no idea of what was happening. He couldn't hear the commentary over the wind. The crowd was hidden beneath a sea of cloaks and battered umbrellas. Twice Harry came very close to being unseated by a bludger. His vision was so clouded by the rain on his glasses, he hadn't seen them coming. He lost track of time. It was getting harder and harder to hold his broom straight. The sky was getting darker as though night had decided to come early. Twice Harry nearly hit another player without knowing whether it was a teammate or opponent. Everyone was now so wet and the rain so thick he could hardly tell them apart. With the first flash of lightning came the sound of Madame Hooch's whistle. Harry could just see the outline of Wood through the thick rain, gesturing him to the ground. The whole team splashed down into the mud. "I called for time out," Wood roared at his team. "Come on, under here." They huddled at the edge of the field under a large umbrella. Harry took off his glasses and wiped them hurriedly on his robes. "What's the score?" "We're 50 points up," said Wood. "But unless we get the snitch soon, we'll be playing into the night." "I've got no chance with these on," Harry said exasperatedly, waving his glasses. At that very moment, Hermione appeared at his shoulder. She was holding her cloak over her head and was inexplicably beaming. "I've had an idea, Harry. Give me your glasses, quick." He handed them to her, and as the team watched in amazement, Hermione tapped them with her wand and said, "Impervious." "There," she said, handing them back to Harry. "They'll repel water." Wood looked as though he could have kissed her. "Brilliant," he called hoarsely after her as she disappeared into the crowd. "Okay, team, let's go for it." Hermione's spell had done the trick. Harry was still numb with cold, still wetter than he'd ever been in his life, but he could see. Full of fresh determination, he urged his broom through the turbulent air, staring in every direction for the snitch, avoiding a bludger, ducking beneath Diggory, who was streaking in the opposite direction. There was another clap of thunder, followed immediately by forked lightning. This was getting more and more dangerous. Harry needed to get the snitch quickly. He turned, intending to head back toward the middle of the field, but at that moment another flash of lightning illuminated the stands, and Harry saw something that distracted him completely.
Let's carry on before I get an angry mob in the comments. I'm sure there are other examples of ableism. I mean, I could argue about Professor Quirrell faking a disability and like stuttering all over book one, but I don't know. I mean, that's not my place to speak, but yeah, I'm sure there are more examples of ableism somewhere. I'm just focusing on the blindness and low vision because Miss Rowling had a thing for that, apparently. It took her 7 books and 26 chapters, and then I could forgive her. Thank you very much. There was a partially blind dragon that escaped from Gringotts. Finally, one creature that didn't have to die because of blindness or whatever. Thank you. Thank you very much. But moving on. This is the other side of the pond version of Harry Potter with a touch of Greek culture and ableist mythology. Because, oh goodness, we all know that mythology is incredibly ableist, or at least I realized that very recently, and I don't know why, but Mr. Riordan managed to make Greek mythology sound like the most ableist thing that was ever created in the world. I'm sorry for fellow Greek friends, but damn, it's Riordan's fault. I mean, he made monsters that were not even blind. Well, he decided to make them blind. The Minotaur, blind. Well, there was a Cyclops Palatinus, and he was blind in the mythology, so yeah, blind. The Hydras, blind. Any other monster that they had to kill, blind or visually impaired. God damn it. Even there was a character, I remember in book 5, in the final battle, there was one character that was missing an eye, and guess what? That character also had to die in the battle, because, you know, some people are gonna die, but be sure that the very disabled characters are the ones that, you know, don't make it in the end, because get fixed or get killed. You decide. Not only that, but I mean, I remember very clearly that all the characters that had mobility issues or were on a wheelchair were soulless creatures disguised as paraplegic humans or something. Okay, Riordan, you don't believe me? You don't believe me? I mean, I don't own any material from this series because I listened to it for free and I just found it somewhere. But yeah, I have an example from book 2.
I took out my ballpoint pen, but Annabeth locked eyes with me, a silent warning. Not yet. I understood. A lot of monsters have terrible eyesight.
Needless to say, whenever I hear about a mythology-based fantasy story with some kind of twist or whatever, I am like, no, I think I'll pass. Fantasy has become one of those genres that, yeah, very nice, very beautiful, maybe not. Not for me. Times has changed, but the Percy Jackson series is kind of recent-ish. No, thank you. No, thank you. And this sentiment of no, thank you has carried on into other genres. I don't know. Contemporary has a tendency to cure the disability at the end, and I don't know, historical fiction too. I don't go too much into historical fiction. I'll talk about that in the next section. But yeah, there is a book by a fellow author tuber that I consider a very visual author tuber, and I follow her and everything. She has very good advice. But that book, I don't know what would be the motivation for that author to write that kind of story that she wrote, but yeah, she wrote about a temporarily blind character. And sure, there are stories like this. There are people who have accidents and then they recover their eyesight back. And yeah, this main character, from what I saw on the blurb, needed her eyesight like for her profession. And yeah, it's tragic, but then she got cured at the end. And I don't know, it's using blindness as the main conflict of a story because tragedy. I appreciate the representation. I wish the writer the best of luck, but I think I shall pass with that one because my gut is telling me no. And if my gut is telling me no, I should listen from now on. And when I said historical fiction, this is the other book that I have been like in a tug of war mode, and I want to read it, and yes and no, and yes and no, and maybe I should find a free version. No, there's no free version. Well, at the moment I don't have the budget, but well, whatever. And I have been like this for months, and it happens to be my comp title. Yeah, how do you use this book as a comp title if you don't even read it? Well, from the blurb alone, I know that I have a lot of comparison points. It is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. Once again, I appreciate the representation. Thank you very much, Mr. Doerr, but I don't know if the character is going to get cured at the end. I haven't read it, probably. or if she doesn't get cured at the end, I don't know. Love cures everything, or love conquers all. I don't know. I don't know. People say that it's a book that make them cry. When it comes to historical fiction, and specifically the topic of World War II, I rather read biographies from survivors. It's a very personal thing. I just prefer to stick with the real deal. And I don't know, World War fiction has been saturated and great. There's a blind character, but I don't know how much research Mr. Dory put into this story. He did research for other things, I'm sure, but I don't know how much research he did in the blindness aspect. I haven't read it. I cannot say if it's good or bad. I just say it's my title. I appreciate it, but I am hesitant to pick it up and go through it, regardless of using it as a title. Mine is like a sci-fi. It's like All the Light We Cannot See set in space. There is a young boy that's trapped in a space station and forced to do very evil things. And there is a partially blind girl on Earth doing things. I'm not going to go into details, but yeah, there is a lot to compare. Just by that, I can compare it. Yeah, moving on. Not everything is bad, of course. I mean, I have the sentiment of, should I read this or not? But there was one series that's maybe my motivation to keep on reading, regardless of all the ableism that I happen to encounter. I don't say it's ill-intended. I say that writers write based on what they know, based on what they learned, and yes, mythology is incredibly ableist. Why is that? It comes from the past. People from the past, the distant past, they didn't understand disability. They didn't have the technology that we have today to aid the disabled and different special needs. No, they saw disabled people as not human, as beings, monsters that were better off locked away and hidden from society. I mean, we still have countries today that do that, and people are still chained to the wall or something. I have seen it in documentaries. It happens still today. It is the lack of understanding of someone who happens to be different from you and has to adapt to the world in a different way. But it doesn't always have to be that bad. One of my favorite series didn't have a blind or visually impaired character, but the author was so clever and portrayed not seeing something in a good light. I mean, I'm talking about Lockwood & Co., but I'm gonna gush about that series in the future, not now. Wait for Halloween for a completely spoilery fan review of the whole series, because I love it. And especially book 2. Again, why is it always book 2? But yeah, book 2 of the Lockwood & Co. series, it portrayed not seeing something as a good thing. It was great for the characters that the myopic boy of the team couldn't see something. In a series where children are the saviors because they can listen and see ghosts when adults can't, and they use their inner senses, so to speak, to catch and destroy ghosts before they destroy the adults. Not being able to see something being a good thing, that was very clever and very, very touching. I tip off my hat to Mr. Stroud. Jonathan Stroud is amazing. Is a genius. I love his books. I'm looking forward to more. So not everything has to be bad. You see, I found one book where it wasn't even a blind character, but it was good not to see something. I felt a little bit more welcome. Speaking of welcome, there is one of the classiest examples of being blind. It doesn't always have to be so bad. And not many people talk about it for some reason. And I grew up listening to the story of Frankenstein or some references in movies and TV shows, and no one ever told me that there was a blind man. And that blind man happened to be the only glimmer of hope for the monster. It was the only person who actually had a short but pleasant conversation with the creature. I mean, this poor creature doesn't even have a name. It's not Frankenstein. But yeah, the creature was raised by this French family. They were completely unaware that there was a monster in their barn. And this monster learned French thanks to listening to them. And when the monster felt ready to talk and just have a nice moment with someone, have some contact with another human, it happened to be a blind man. Awesome. Not everything coming from earlier days has to be ableist. And to prove that, we have Mary Shelley. Thank you so much, Mary Shelley. No wonder she's one of my writer idols. Thank you. And to share something more lighthearted with everybody, this is one of my favorite creature representations of disability, and this one I forgave it to be creatures and stuff because the whole movie is about creatures and disabled representation. I mean, they cannot do it with humans apparently, but they do it very well when it comes to fish, and that's of course Finding Nemo and then Finding Dory. Finding Nemo was amazing. I related with Nemo so much because the parental figure that is not really your parent thingy that happened between Nemo and Gil, and how both had like a broken fin and they could still do things. Yeah, I relate very much. And then they created Destiny, the shark whale with terrible eyesight. Me and one of my friends even have a joke about it. Like, we're like Dory and Destiny. Because when we have to go outside and we do some errands and stuff, it's like my friend forgets where we're going or where we were or where was the entrance. And I'm the one who knows, but I can't see. So it's like Dory and Destiny doing things together out there in the world. It's funny. We need t-shirts. But yeah, I really like how Pixar portrayed her, and even her arguments with her neighbor, the beluga whale. That was hilarious.
Can you please keep it down over there? My head hurts.
Who's that? That's my neighbor, Bailey. He was brought in with a head injury.
I know you're talking about me, Destiny.
He thinks he can't use his echolocation, but I've overheard the doctors talking.
I'm right here.
There's not a thing wrong
Hear
with him.
every word you're saying about me.
What's echolocation?
Well, Bailey's head is supposed to put out a call, and the echo helps him find objects far away.
Oh, but apparently he's still healing.
No, I know you're talking about me. I really can't
Oh,
echolocate.
I cannot have this conversation again.
I
just
hit
can't.
my head very hard out there. See how swollen it
Your
is?
head is supposed to be big. You're a beluga.
There are no walls in the ocean, Destiny. Swim away. Be free. Free the whale, shark. Speaking of runaway characters, you know this is coming. She is one of my favorite blind characters of all time, and I say that if I were a coin, she would be one of the two sides. I'm gonna talk about the other one a little bit later, but yes, of course, Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I always say like I'm the Toph of AuthorTube. I'm not gonna do the Melon Lord joke. It's a serious video. Don't do that. I'm tempted. Don't. Toph is one of these characters that I don't know how they did the research, what did they do, who did they talk to, but I feel so connected to this character, not only because of her blindness, and actually I'm not the same blind as she is, because, you know, for sighted people who write disabled characters, blindness is like pitch black. You can't see anything at all, not even light perception. And it's not always true. We have some remaining vision. Some of us have a little bit more. Some of us have a little bit less. Some of us can only see light. But just to keep it, you know, short and sweet, they went for total blindness, and that's totally okay. So yeah, Toph is blind. And in this world, I believe her heightened senses because she trained from a very young age. And this is a world where people can bend elements, okay? It's fantasy. It's not the same as Daredevil that, ooh, he can have like heightened senses. And he created this mythology of blind people here on Earth are like Daredevil. You know, we can smell things from 5 kilometers away. No, we can't. We cannot hear you on the other side of the street talking on your phone. No, we cannot do that. But then in the case of Toph, it works because it's a different world. And she trained from a very young age, and she developed a skill that's very in tune with the element that she happens to control. So earthbending and seismic sense, awesome. They made it work. And that's why it's more believable to me than Daredevil. Sorry for Daredevil fans, but not my thing. They treated Toph like an equal member of Team Avatar. She had a personality, a backstory, a purpose in the whole thing. And yeah, she happened to have a disability. But it was not the only thing that she had going for her. She was the best earthbender ever. She even developed metal bending. I mean, it kind of edges into this idea that blind people and disabled people in general have to be like these very inspirational characters. I know it edges into that. But they made it in a way that in their world, it works. And it is actually inspiring, not because of her disability, but rather the way that she wants to show the world that she is the best. And that could be a person that has no disabilities at all. She just happened to be blind. And they gave her a lot of nuance when it comes to that. She had this mask of, I am very strong and independent, and you don't have to take care of me. I can do everything on my own. Thank you very much. That's something that a lot of people do. Myself included. I am one of those that don't touch me, I can do it on my own, thank you. And then underneath that mask that we put out to the world, We have the deep sense of we want to have like our own found family thing. It's not about approval from other people. It's that we want to prove to ourselves that we are just like everybody else. Deep down, she wants that. And she doesn't show it because, she's like this very stone-like character. She's strong, but deep down, she is just like anybody else. She wants companion. Family? She wants what her biological family never gave her. Speaking of families, I said that if I were a coin, I would have two sides and Toph is one of them. So who's the other one? Who's the other side of my coin? Here I have to speak about Dancer in the Dark and Selma Jestkova, starred by Björk. Usually I am in defense of disabled actors playing disabled characters. And I still am, but here I have to make an exception, because that film would have never been as good as it is today without Björk and her creative input. She managed to make music out of ordinary sounds laying around your house and create this soundscape of Selma's inner world in a way that I still cannot put into words, and it is my favorite film. She's my favorite character. I totally see myself in her. But I cannot watch that movie twice. It's intense, and I cannot recommend that to younger audiences. Also, I'm gonna do the same thing that my mother did. If you're a very young person, please just wait a few years. Don't watch that. Don't. And if you're a blind young person, wait some years. And understand that this film is relating a story about another era. So this is based in the 60s in the United States. Times were different. There was not enough assistive technology. Things were the way they were before. And Selma is this migrant woman from Czechoslovakia who moved to the States, got a job, and who is trying to save enough money so she can afford an operation for her son. Because, her son inherited the same condition that she has. She is a woman going blind, and she wants her son to have his eyes. Because, like I said, there was no assistive technology. If you were blind, you were screwed, because different times. It's very intense. Things happen. I'm not going to spoil the film, but if you are an adult, I can totally recommend it to you. If you're younger, maybe wait some years. I had to wait some years, and even though I waited, it was intense. This film, to the eyes and ears of people who don't understand the difference between, a sort of near historical fiction, would say that, oh, this film is kind of ableist, and oh no, that is so depressing. It is sad. It is depressing, and it at the same time is very realistic. It could have happened. When we say that we want representation and no more ableism in media, in books, and in media in general, it doesn't mean that we always have to have disabled characters to be Mary Susan and Gary Seuss. It's not about that. I mean, Selma is far, far away from being a Mary Sue. She just happens to be a woman who copes with the crude reality through music and fantasizing that she's a star in a musical. To me, it's really touching because I am a daydreamer and I have the tendency to cope with music. So if I were a coin, I have my side that I'm very tough and I'm very strong and independent and I'm the best ever. And then I have my Selma side that it's like I'm just trying to cope with difficulties and I'm gonna escape into my music world and I'm not gonna come out until I feel better. It's so relatable, and this film was created by people who are fully sighted. And Selma is going blind, so her vision loss is gradual. It has a lot more nuance than the usual, this person is just pitch black blind and that's it. It's a fantastic film. So if you don't want to hear me gushing about that film anymore, I totally recommend it. Go watch it whenever you find a link, or if it's available on those streaming services. I don't have those streaming services. I did not grow up with audio descriptions in shows and films, so I'm just not accustomed to it, and I opted for books and audiobooks instead of films. And yes, I have to choose, and I don't have the time for everything, so I don't really know if it's available on streaming services, but I totally recommend it. Speaking of films and examples of characters that don't have to be Mary Sue and Gary Seuss, well, here I have a Gary Sue or Stu or whatever. Here I have a character that it's a rich blind man from the movie Don't Breathe. Now, here they used a sighted actor, and I don't know why they wouldn't call someone else. I haven't watched the film. I don't know the film, but I know from a referral. I know because of the videos from the blind film critic. Yes, Tommy Edison is a blind film critic. He reviews films from his own perspective. Yes, he was born with blindness. I think he cannot see anything at all. I think he would be the example of the pitch black blindness or something like that. And actually his videos helped the producers of that movie to create this blind character. So they watched a ton of his videos to be able to channel, what it is to be a blind person or what they perceive to be blind, whatever. So the actor is cited there. I don't have an excuse. It's not Björk and it's not creating the music of a person's inner world. There, I don't know what to say, but according to Tommy Edison, it was a good movie. He reviewed it. I'm gonna link his video in the cards and somewhere in the description. If you're curious on the perspective of someone who is pitch black blind, not like me that I have some remaining vision left, you can also check him out. And also the movie, it's called Don't Breathe. So these kids break into this rich blind man's house and they think they're gonna have a cake of an experience. They can do whatever they want. No, I'm sorry, they got it wrong. So it's a suspense movie and the blind is a villain, but he has good reasons to be a villain and it has nothing to do with his blindness. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm interested, even though I'm not sure how to watch the film, but it sounds pretty good. I mean, blind villains, why not? I mean, what the problem that we have with this blind villain thing is like, when the blindness is the only characteristic of the villain, oh, they are blind and they are evil, and it's like the only different person in the book. And there are ways and there are ways, and I think Don't Breathe, according to Tommy Edison, according to his perspective, that film is a good example of a good blind villain. I don't know, but I can recommend it because a fellow blind person recommended it. Why not? Check it out. Hi. No, I did not call you, but you were talking about get out of my video. Come on. Do it. Oh, God. All right. Shameless self-promo, whatever. This fella over here. My name is Hulda. You're not no... Damn. Well, I am a blind villain. Yeah, she's a blind villain. Okay. Get out of my video now. Get out. Yeah, so as you may notice already, if you have checked my videos on my channel, or if you have seen me somewhere else by any chance, yeah, I am a writer. I write about blind and visually impaired characters in fiction. Mostly I don't go on the memoir route, and I try to write them in different situations. It's not always good. It's not always pretty. I said, get out of my video. Thank you. And the purpose of my writing is, of course, portraying that we are like anybody else. Well, of course, I'm an alien, but, I'm also visually impaired. And as I am on Earth, I am very human-looking. So, yeah, we are just like everybody else. We could be good. We could be bad. We could be gray. We could be something completely different. But that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we're blind. We are just cut short in one of our senses. Well, I'm cut short in two of my senses. I'm I'm going on a tangent. But yeah, those are examples of different portrayals of blindness and low vision in fiction. And it's all varied and different. Not all was positive, not all was delightful to encounter. And I hope as time goes by, we as storytellers are able to create more diverse characters and more welcoming worlds, regardless of who is the good guy and who's the villain and who is somewhere in between. Like I said, I'm not the only one talking about this today. There is an entire playlist that you're gonna check out because I'm gonna leave it here and down in the description, and check out everybody else's videos. They have more books and stories to share with you. Thank you for spending some time with me.
Here is your tea. You seem a little too young to be traveling alone.
You seem a little too old.
Perhaps I am.
I know what you're thinking. I look like I can't handle being by myself.
I wasn't thinking that.
You wouldn't even let me pour my own cup of tea.
I poured your tea because I wanted to, and for no other reason.
People see me and think I'm weak. They want to take care of me. But I can take care of myself by myself.
You sound like my nephew, always thinking you need to do things on your own without anyone's support. There is nothing wrong with letting people who love you help you. Not that I love you. I just met you.
So, where is your nephew?
I've been tracking him, actually.
Is he lost?
Yes, a little bit. His life has recently changed, and he's going through very difficult times. He's trying to figure out who he is, and he went away.
So, now you're following him.
I know he doesn't want me around right now, but if he needs me, I'll be there.
Your nephew is very lucky, even if he doesn't know it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Sharing tea with a fascinating stranger is one of life's true delights.
No, thank you for what you said. It helped me.
I'm glad.
Oh, and about your nephew? Maybe you should tell him that you need him, too.